In this video, we'll take a look at why saving the Falmouth Secondary line is important today and looking back at what could have been. More specifically, we'll see the Falmouth passenger station last regularly used in 1988, but modernized in 1989 with a new and high-level platform for future rail service. All this just to be left abandoned when 7 miles of rail line were taken from us by a pro-trail group and state representative. The Falmouth station was built in 1912, replacing the older depot built in 1872 when the line was built. It was used by the New Haven Railroad until 1959 when the Old Colony passenger service was cut. Summertime service was restored in 1960 and lasted until 1964 when the New Haven cut it for the last time. The line continued to operate freight only, but in the 1980s, service was restored by the Cape Cod Hyannis Railroad. CCH was a private operator offering train service from Braintree and Attleboro to Hyannis and Falmouth. But that only lasted until the 1988 season, as its subsidy was cut in 1989. Despite this, the station was modernized with a new high-level platform and redone low platform, as well as a remodeled station building in 89 with the idea that passenger service would return to ease congestion on the Cape. Unfortunately, it never did, and the last freight service to Falmouth ended in 1991 due to damage from Hurricane Bob. The light freight traffic to Falmouth didn't justify the out-of-pocket repair cost for rail operator Bay Colony, so they focused on repairing only the north end of the line to Otis. At the time, the Bay Colony trash train was running regularly to and from Otis, so those guaranteed carloads made more sense than an occasional boxcar. Until 2008, the south end of the line sat overgrown and unused, but a rail trail group had gained enough influence to remove the out-of-service but not abandoned track to Falmouth. The original plan for the trail extension called for a rail with trail design separated by a fence like seen in North Falmouth, Yarmouth, Adams, and other locations. The high cost for this wasn't attractive to the trail group, and a pro-trail state rep slipped in the legislature last minute into a bill to remove the track. It then came up in 2008 and was paved, despite the original plan of retaining it for future use. With the introduction of Cape Flyer service to Hyannis only 5 years later, in 2013, who knows what could have been done if the rail was left in place? Would we have a shuttle to meet the Flyer at Buzzards Bay or even a separate train to Boston? Would freight service have been restored to the transload yard that was still getting cars in 1991? These are questions that we'll never know the answers to, but one thing is certain, we won't have to ask them again if we are successful in preserving what's left of the Falmouth line. If you haven't already, please read the description and watch the other linked videos to see why the Falmouth line needs to be saved. No active rail line should ever be removed just to pave the right-of-way for a bike trail.